Let's go ahead and dive in. I could not wait to talk with this guy. As a matter of fact, I couldn't sleep for 2 nights thinking about this.
So, we were going to talk yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah, we could. Author, speaker, attorney Don Brown is with us right now. Everybody, you're like a regular segment of this show, so everybody's used to you by now. But a wonderful, wonderful thing. And you are on a secluded island somewhere.
Fripp Island, South Carolina, beautiful Beaufort County. Drove down here the Wednesday morning after Trump's victory, and on about maybe 3 hours sleep. I got up and did an interview at 7 after going to bed like at 2:45, 3 when Fox called it. CNN did not want to call it yet, so but I was satisfied that we were in good shape. So it's been a couple of days enjoying the victory here.
Yeah, very, very happy. Turned out better than I expected. I just knew. Okay, I was excited when the election night, but I was fearing when I woke up in the morning we would get a repeat of what happened 4 years ago. And so I'm sure some cheating was going on, no problem. But I think Trump probably had something implemented. He was on them this time. First time, shame on me. Next time, shame on you.
The president this is the most brilliantly executed presidential campaign I've ever seen, because all of us as conservatives have been nervous about early voting because the Democrats have used it to cheat. Trump turned it on their head and banked votes. And I'm telling you, Donna, he banked votes of people that had never voted before. I have a nephew of mine who's a libertarian. All of a sudden, he's a Trump supporter. His wife had never even registered. She registered and voted for Trump and put it on their social media. And it goes on and on and on. And when you bring in people like that have never been part of the system, who inherently trust the president, but also know that the Democrats are a bunch of buffoons and their candidate was a buffoon on steroids, you can grow your base. And right now, Trump has expanded, what is the Republican Party into something more powerful and larger than it's ever been, because he's brought in libertarians, he's brought in, Democrats who are good people who are disgusted with what has happened to that party that they used to be a member of. He's brought in Latinos, black males, huge, tremendous progress. State of California, I'm staying here with some friends from California, and of course they're conservative and Christian, but the red counties, there are more red counties than blue counties in California. Of course, he didn't win California, but he came within, a 60-40, which is closer than it's been in years, even in New York. So he's cutting into a lot of these big blue states, which is why he won the popular vote. And it's a great day. It's a great week for the country. We still have to continue to pray for his safety. There's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome out there, but I'm hoping that this time we're going to hit the ground running and we have to listen. The Democrat Party, as we know it, has got to be obliterated. We cannot take any prisoners here. What they try to do to this country, weaponizing the justice system, trying to use the power of government to suppress free speech on Facebook and other media modicums, trying to force transgender surgeries into the military to weaken it. We have to destroy this Democrat Party politically so that it can't rise into the destructive force that it's been. So we've got to really take the momentum and really put the pedal to the metal and really finish them off at this point. It has to happen. And hopefully we're going to finish up with the House of Representatives and have a full Republican Congress. And this time, no more John McCain's doing a thumbs down on Obamacare. The rhinos have got to get in line or get out, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly. But I wanted to mention something to you, and I've seen a change in a lot of different things. Okay, prior on Facebook, I could post something out there, and it actually didn't show I was receiving any results. Like, not that many people were watching. However, the very first thing I posted the day after the election, it was just a simple post, and it was about the red wave. So it's taken over. So when I looked, within just a few hours of posted that, I already had 7,000 viewers on it. 7,000? So what's happening there?
Well, who knows? Really, who knows? I suspect, though, that Facebook is concerned about Trump coming in and reviewing their actions and policies.
Could be.
And they're trying to get in line, maybe. I'm theorizing because I don't have any inside information on this, but it makes all the sense in the world. They know what's coming, and so they don't want the FTC to take action against them. They don't want to be deplatformed. They have been an instrument of the Democrat government, especially carrying out censorship directives from Biden. I mean, as I said before, Mussolini himself said that corporatism is the cornerstone of fascism. In other words, you have these tyrannical governments using big companies to carry out their tyranny. And that's what the Democrats have done. They use Bank of America, these big social media platforms like Facebook, and not just Bank of America. I'm talking about big Fortune 500 companies to carry out woke stuff, to carry out all their, censorship stuff, to force Christians, to accept all kinds of things. But then if we want to have our, prayer meetings or whatever within their company, that gets shut down. So social media has been an instrument of big government. It has, in fact, been a fascist plan. When the Biden government was using these big companies to try to force vaccines on people, that is tyrannical, and that is fascism. So I suspect that Facebook, they've probably been told by their attorneys, listen, we're going to have a full review the day Trump takes office, and we got to start looking like we're not suppressing. And I'm hoping that is the case, but I can't say for sure. I suspect that may be what's happening here.
I'm just finding that since the election, since that morning after the election, my analytics have just went through the roof, and it has to be something like that, Well,
that plus people are elated also, I mean, people just like, phew, wow. And, for a long time, only very few of us would speak out. But in the recent, last couple of months, more people are stepping forward. Some are still afraid, whatever. Yeah. My cousin Walt called me, and we used to have this joke. He lives in Raleigh. He said nobody ever admitted to vote for Jesse Helms, but he never lost an election. You see a lot of the same thing like with Trump. There are people that won't admit, but by golly, there's a lot of elation out in this country this week, and rightly so.
You mentioned the different groups of people who voted for Trump. The Amish came out in big form.
And I think that's one of the reasons Pennsylvania swung the right way. They saw what the Democrats were trying to do to them. I mean, Amish tried, you got to love the Amish. They're some of the most peaceful, resourceful, wonderful people in the world. But they had taken a philosophy, we'll just keep to ourselves and pray and it won't matter. But then they started seeing tyranny, and they understood it did matter. And by golly, you could see the horse and buggies out, headed toward the polls.
That was awesome.
And, but that's just think about it. I mean, this coalition that the president has put together, listen, Donald Trump, Donna, is going to be one of the most significant presidents in American history. He already is. What's happened here is gigantic. It's only the second time in American history that a president has skipped the term and won again. The first time was Grover Cleveland. But you look, I mean, I'm a student of American history, maybe not as astute as some, but this president is a giant on the landscape of presidential history, an absolute giant. We've never seen anybody like him in our lifetime. In his ability to connect with middle class, and I love Ronald Reagan. I mean, I'm a disciple of Ronald Reagan, the great communicator. But in terms of being able to show up and have 50,000 people show up on a moment's notice, this president, Donald Trump, has an ability to relate to the average working man and working woman in a way that nobody has. And his resilience is beyond anything we've ever seen. All the things they've thrown at him, from dropping Billy Bush on him a week before the 2016 election, to multiple impeachments, to multiple prosecutions, to now multiple assassination attempts, and he just keeps coming right back. We need to enjoy this moment historically while we can. There are people out there that flip out over him. Friends of mine, I'm not going to vote for the liar or the tyrant, blah, 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 blah. But we don't, and I've had discussions with other Republican friends, DeSantis supporters. I just wish he changed the way he talks about. So listen, the way he talks is the reason he's as popular as he is. And your guy's not going to come within 10 miles of ever touching him. And it is really an amazing historical time that we live in. For this president, Donald Trump, to be able to bring a coalition with Bobby Kennedy, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, who really had no political. Ramaswamy and Elon are similar in some ways, or even Joe Rogan. They really were not even politically active. Ramaswamy wasn't politically active, but they have seen what this Democrat Party has done in terms of threatening our freedoms and threatening our nation, and they've seen how Trump is taking a direct stand against it. And I'm telling you, this is a significant time in our history. And this guy is no average guy. As I mentioned to you, Donna, I watched all of his interview with Joe Rogan, all 3 hours. Watched a couple of bites, a couple of segments. But I came away more impressed with that guy, and my opinion, my respect for him is already through the roof. He pardoned my client, Lieutenant Clint Lawrence, in 2019. Nobody else would have. We worked hard with the White House on that. And he had the gravitas to do it. Only he had the gravitas to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, or to move our embassy there when the State Department bureaucrats are going to start a war. He just blew them off. But this guy, the way he commands a conversation in that Rogan interview, he goes from talking about, the history of the relationship between Abraham Lincoln and Robert E. Lee. Lincoln he could not defeat Lee, or to the melancholy depression that Lincoln and his wife Mary Todd have over their son Ted. And he goes from there to talking about William McKinley and his position on tariffs and the blue ribbon panel, and points out something that I never even thought about, really, that the United States exploded in the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s, early 1900s, at a time when there was zero income tax. If you think about that, because income tax never came along to the Woodrow Wilson administration, but it was the Industrial Revolution in the 1880s through the 1920s that led to the industrial might that led us to win 2 world wars. People don't consider that. But this guy has a command of history. He's got a command of geography. He's got a command of politics. He was even talking about 12 rhubarb concrete that he would like to see in nuclear reactors, because there's could Kamala even do that for a second, or nobody else really?
No.
This man, Donald Trump, is larger than life. I mean, he's a human. He's not perfect, but on the political landscape and historical landscape, you can think of the presidents may be larger than life. Of course, there's Washington, there's Lincoln, Jefferson, the founding fathers, Lincoln. Then you get into Teddy Roosevelt, you get into Harry Truman, you get into FDR because of where they were historically. You get into JFK, you get to Reagan, and now you got Trump. And all the rest of them are, they're
pale in comparison as far as I'm concerned. And I've always most respect for those past presidents. But I wanted to get your opinion about this, because it's rare to win the electoral vote and the popular vote. He got both of them.
He did. And,
you can't argue with that.
Well, he did. But, I'll level with you. They say he did not win the popular vote in California in 2016. But I have no faith in the way they're counting in California. So that's what they say. I'm not sure I'm fully convinced of that. But this time, there's no question. This was such an electoral monsoon, as you and I had talked before, that the Democrats could not even get in there and say, oh, we're going to hold up to count these votes or those votes. They were just swamped, which is the way he laid it out, the way he planned it. One of the smartest moves he made was putting his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, and Michael Whatley, the former chair of the North Carolina Republican Party, in charge of the RNC. And so we were ready with legal teams ready to go, countering the Democrats at every move. And it didn't hurt the fact that their candidate was so weak, but it's just not. I heard Greg Gutfeld. I mean, they're trying to, some of these Democrats are trying to rationalize, oh, it was a race thing. America's not ready for a black or a woman. Hey, first of all, you already elected Obama twice. It's a bunch of junk. But the fact of the matter is that she was a very weak candidate, an extremely weak candidate. Look, Virginia, which went blue but almost went red, elected a black woman as their lieutenant governor, Winsome Sears, who was a conservative superstar, and who I would vote for in a heartbeat if she were, in one of the two, president or vice presidential positions in the Republican Party. There are superstars, but this candidate was about as weak. She may have been weaker than Biden. I'm not sure. I've gone back and forth who would have been weaker. I can't say. But it isn't just the fact that candidate's weak and the whole racial stuff, which they try is a bunch of junk. I have to watch what I say in the presence of a lady. But you know what
I'm thinking what you are. I'm just not saying it. Okay.
But it's their philosophies, Donna. It's their philosophies. All the woke stuff. Biden puts in these dudes wearing women's dresses when he comes in. He puts dudes wearing women's dresses in the U.S. military. People don't want to see that crap. I mean, then they come in and it's LBGTQ ABCDEFG.
I can't even keep up with it anymore.
because they're trying to divide people. They're trying to get, well, number LBGTQR, whatever the W is, they'll go to the W people and get on board. They're trying to get people worked up against just the divide. And the American people have seen through that. All these indictments, Trump facing hundreds of years, they thought they could take him down on all that. They attacked him on multiple fronts in multiple courts. And by golly, the American people saw through the crap and knew that it was political, knew that the Democrats overplayed their hand. And when you overplay your hand enough, it comes back to bite you in the derriere, and that's exactly what happened, and praise God for it.
Let's talk about your book for a few minutes, because, folks, you really need to buy this book, the latest one. Talk about it and how folks can find it.
Thank you. The book is Kangaroo Court, and I thought I had a copy of it here somewhere. I may have a copy. I'll get it in a second. But it's Kangaroo Court, which is released by Post Hill Press out of New York last week, and I've been doing some interviews on the book. The book looks at political prosecutions, Donna. And, the Trump prosecutions have brought all this to light because we know how ridiculous these things are. But the Democrats started using political prosecutions as a weapon about 30 years ago. So we look at about 20, 25 cases leading up to the Trump case, just to show how they've used it over and over again, how they destroy people. And it isn't just politicians, although they went after the governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell. Jack Smith, the same guy going after Trump, went after McDonnell, got him convicted on something ridiculous, which is reversed 8-0 by the Supreme Court. Even the Democrats reversed it, but it cost McDonnell $27 million. They went after Tom DeLay, the former Speaker of the former House Majority Leader, but they also got to ordinary people. So we talk about like Mark Houck and Paul Wham. These were peaceful pro-life fathers who were peacefully protesting, one in Philadelphia, one in the Nashville area. But because the Supreme Court reversed Roe versus Wade, the Biden Justice Department went after them on felonies. They prosecuted Douglas Mackey, who was a cartoonist, who in 2016 does a cartoon lampooning Hillary Clinton voters as being dumb. It's pretty funny. You see cartoons all the time. They can be funny. I mean, they're funny on both sides. 5 years later, in 2021, when Biden steals the office, the Biden Justice Department prosecutes Douglas Mackey in New York. So the book looks at these prosecutions leading up to the Trump prosecutions. Of course, they're not blow away the arguments that these Democrats make in their prosecutions and excoriate Jack Smith and Fani Willis and Letitia James and Alvin Bragg and go after them pretty hard. And the book closes arguing that we need what I call rogue prosecutor law, so that these prosecutors are prosecuted themselves as they bring these things. We don't have them. The Congress needs to pass those. So I hope everybody will go to Amazon and look up Kangaroo Court by Don Brown and read it. And let's take action on this point. We can't just let this go away. If we don't, that's what I said earlier. We've got to put our foot on the pedal, put the pedal to the metal, and finish the job here. Because Trump comes in, comes out. He's going to have 4 years. They'll be right up to the same shenanigans if we don't take a blowtorch to them. And I mean that politically. Anybody watching this right now, we have to go after the Democrats, and we got to take them down. We've got to destroy their philosophy, including the philosophy of these political prosecutions as a weapon against average Americans, against our Constitution.
Something I've been thinking about this, Don. I'm going to have to come up with a new gig, because I'm going to miss making fun of Kamala. I mean, I had it going on there making fun of her. I'm going to have to find a new gig.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, you're going to have. I wish we didn't have any Democrats to make fun of. I wish they'd all just leave the country like they've threatened to do every time Trump gets elected. But they'll resurface. I mean, you've got unfortunately Adam Schiff now, the Senate. I mean, you've got all kinds of clowns, Jamie Raskin, Chuck Schumer. They're still there. We'll have plenty of cannon fodder to ridicule for sure. I just hope they don't get too much power. But you're going to have plenty of targets to have fun with, Donna. So I wouldn't worry too much,
Believe me, it'll be a nice thing to be rid of her. Really. Okay. So do you think she is finished politically?
Oh, yeah. I think that she wants to think otherwise. But yeah, I think she's finished.
Done.
But if you stop and think about it, Donna, she tried to run for president against Biden the first time, going into 2019, 2020, and didn't win a single state, dropped out, didn't even win California, as I recall, and had to drop out immediately because she couldn't raise any money. She's a horrible candidate. She's been propped up from the beginning. She was associated with Willie Brown. You can use your imagination on that. Her association with Willie Brown helped her to to climb the ladder locally in San Francisco to get into the DA's office.
Mm-hmm.
But she has no critical ability of independent thought, none. And it became obvious. I mean, every time she spoke, it hurt her. I don't think, I mean, could she go back to California and get elected in San Francisco? If she wanted to do that, she might. But on the national stage, no, I don't think so. There have been some instances historically where we've had vice presidents go back into the Senate. For example, Hubert Humphrey was one who was vice president, later became a senator from Minnesota. But California's already got radical senators, so there's no room for her. So I think she's done, to answer your question.
Yeah.
Much to her chagrin.
I'm going to miss it, though. Have you been seeing the memes on Facebook where Trump is actually in a car going to McDonald's and she's behind the window? This guy is just, he's a genius when it comes to promotion. I mean, he can do it. So many things they threw at him and he threw it right back.
Right.
Most people wouldn't be able to think that fast.
Well, that's one of the things that made him so mad at him. He was so good at it. It just infuriated him. Just absolutely infuriated him. And, you know, the meltdown seems to be a little different from the first meltdown. They seem frustrated, crying and weeping, but they're kind of like, I mean, what can you say when you get beat that bad? I was watching The Five. I watched that sometimes in the afternoon on Fox, and Jessica Tarlov, she took her medicine. Hey, this is a repudiation. She's one of the designated Democrats on this show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a repudiation of the Democrat Party and a Democrat philosophy. And if Democrats don't learn from this, there's nowhere to go. They're pretty arrogant. And she pointed out, you can't call people garbage. You can't call people deplorables. You know, I had I won't say the name of the lady out of respect for her, but I had an ongoing debate with a very prominent woman Democrat politician in North Carolina who was elected to statewide office, who decided she wanted to debate me on, you know, on Facebook Messenger. I said, okay, bring it on. So she says, she starts with this line, Republicans are the rhetoric. The rhetoric is just mean. I said, who's calling who a Nazi? Who's calling who garbage?
Come on.
So we get past that, and then it's like she's trying to send me these articles. The Democrats will try to send articles from some beanhead to try to argue they're doing better than they really are. I said, listen, when's the last time you go to the grocery store? And she was inflation this, inflation that. I said, listen, you know what? And I know who she is. So I said, you don't care really, because it doesn't affect you whether gasoline's at $1 a gallon or $10 a gallon. There are millions of us who it hurts. The cost of groceries hurt. She says, well, I grew up in a poor family. I said, well, apparently you've forgotten the pain and don't understand why people are mad as hell as these Democrats. Mm-hmm. And finally, she was trying to get on me saying that you know that the president can have no control over the price of gas. So she sends these two articles, one from Forbes and one from another economist, basically arguing that prices are set by the free market. Now, in a general vacuum, that may be true, except I wrote her back and I said, I've read the articles. I'm not persuaded because your articles do not touch in the least bit, one iota, on the effect of the president's ability to regulate through the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, through the EPA, through any number of other agencies that they can come in and just, which is what Biden did. He shut drilling down. He's closed lots of drilling in Alaska, shut off offshore drilling, killed pipelines. And so a government's actions can artificially cause inflation by using its power to shut down an industry. Ask the people of West Virginia if the president has power to affect an economy, because Obama basically killed the coal industry in West Virginia and parts of Ohio through EPA regulations. Mm-hmm. And so I sent that back to her. I didn't hear anything else from her, but they've lost touch. And I told her to encourage her, so you should leave the Democrat Party. And if anybody's in my voice out, hearing my voice, and you're a Democrat, you leave them. You put your country ahead of your party like Bobby Kennedy did. And Bobby Kennedy put his country ahead of his party. And it's not because Bobby Kennedy was necessarily in love with President Trump. He tried to run as a Democrat, but they shut him down, wouldn't let him debate. Then they sued him to keep him off the ballot. And Trump was reasonable, and they agreed on certain positions. For example, Ukraine, censorship, another. And so if you're a Democrat, leave the party, leave it forever. Don't go back to it. It has become, they're basically, the national, now be clear, not all Democrats are this way. I have relatives who are Democrats, but in national, Democrat Party and its intellectual epicenter are a bunch of English-speaking communists. And they are not America first. They are globalists first. And they're seeking through their policies to destroy the country.